do have 1 o'clock.
All right, call meeting to order. Roll call, do you have that, Kathy?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Public comment, do we have any?
I do not, sir.
Okay. All emails, no? Okay. Consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Reports, general manager report.
Yes, sir. I do have my report in there as well as the report from the other members of the senior leadership team. The other thing I would want to add is we did get in our awards since the last meeting. So there's a safety award from APPA. And then we also got our certificate of excellence and reliability from APPA. So we will hang both of those in the lobby.
Congratulations. Yeah. Good job.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah, I was just gonna say.
I think it's probably just a print error, but this, it's in your report, Keith. MPCA emissions inventory due April 1st. Is that correct? Because I know we're almost through April now.
Yes, but
So that may be-
again, I completed that after the last commission meeting, so just letting the commission know that that was completed.
I figured.
And submitted, yeah, submitted on time.
Clear it up, like.
Yeah.
Any questions I have? Do we need action on that?
No, we don't need action on that. I just, if there's any questions on it.
Correct.
I only found one spelling error, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay, regular, let's move on to regular agenda. Service line replacement update.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Wanted to give the commission an update on service line replacement project, and we have Jen Edison here. So Jen, if you want to just come up in case the commission has questions. Just wanted to make sure that folks were aware of the project scope that WSB has developed for us, along with the base bid. Big picture, originally when we applied for the grant through the Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund, we put in an estimated cost of $600,000. The engineer's estimate has come back at $881,000. WSB has been in communication with the fund, and it's very common to apply. Once we get stuff in, to apply for that. Those numbers are still estimates. We will be obviously going out for bid, assuming the commission approves that today, to go for the advertisement of bids. And the intention is still to complete this project in this calendar year. And then I will also share, we did have our auditors in yesterday, and Kathy and I did discuss this project with the auditors, just to make sure we track everything appropriately, given that being a grant, we have to spend the money and then get reimbursed for it. So, you'll see that in the financial statements in the course of the time, right? It doesn't look like, make us look, we're not as bad as it'll look because of the expenditure, and it will be reimbursed. Other than that, Jen, I don't know if you wanted to say anything in regards.
Yeah, I'll just add to what Keith said with the, we did contact the Department of Health, and the way the grant is operated is once the bids come in and the pricing comes in, we submit that, and then they true up the cost. So it was a little bit, this is sort of a new thing that everyone is going through with this service line replacement. And so there was a little bit of a concern initially with the cost of things, but we did confirm that they true up the cost in the end after the price, after the bids come in. And then I would just say, I know we don't have a bidding schedule at this time. Right now, we're waiting for the Department of Health to get back to us with their review, at which time we can get the agreement in place. And so right now, we're just waiting. We'd like the flexibility to bid once that happens and not wait for another commission meeting to bring everything back. So once we hear back from the Department of Health, we'd like to get that bidding schedule, and Keith can share that with the commission at that time.
Yeah. And then, just as a recap as well, through this grant, which is fully funding the project, so there's nothing that will come out of our cash reserves for it. It will replace the last known galvanized services, so we'll be able to say that we've addressed that problem. So as Jen mentioned, we're on the front end of this, so we'll be ahead of folks. So as by the end of the year, we'll have taken care of the entire issue, and we can let the other communities do all their stuff.
Good job.
So we haven't received the grant yet.
We do not receive the grant until we spend the money and
Oh,
then have to reimburse.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'm not on the page here, but I didn't quite understand that.
But the reimbursement usually is like 60 days, right? And then I think it's pretty quick, just a couple of months.
Yeah.
So we will likely be reimbursed the full amount of whatever we.
Yes, we have been, yeah, the grant is for the full cost of the project.
They haven't run out of money for first, right?
We were approved, yeah, we were approved for this at the end of last year, and so we've been working with WSB to now actually do everything. So we are in the list.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe if we did have to kick in a little bit, it wouldn't be that big of a deal.
The PUC is definitely on the front end of this compared to other communities.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else on that? You just need some action on it?
I would like a motion to allow us to do the advertisement for bids with the flexibility to set the date when we hear back from the Department of Health.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to put this out for bids.
And one quick thought,
Go ahead.
is our local staff going to be participating in that at all, or will the contractor do it all?
Well, we've been supporting them in terms of doing the outreach to the individual landowners for the
Well, we don't know
service.
the actual dating of the work.
No, that's all being handled through the bid process.
To be eligible for the grant, you couldn't perform the work yourself, or you couldn't perform it in-house, or did check into that at the early stages of it, it wasn't an option, so.
Not to argue.
Makes sense.
Need more to do. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0. Okay, 7th Avenue,
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is, again, more just an update for the commission. I did include Jen's email that she had given to the city council in March to give the commission a clear understanding of the timeline and the nature of the project. And the city is handling all of the advertisement for bids and things like that. Jen and I have talked about it. I also conferred with our attorney, and everything's good on that end. So the WSB has moved forward with the advertisement for bids on that. The bid opening, I think, is early May.
May 9th.
Yeah, so that process is moving forward. Ultimately, when the bids come in, the commission will have to approve the selection of the bidder along with the city council, and I'm assuming the county too, since it's a joint parties effort. But a lot of this is really just make sure you guys are kept in the loop as to what's going on, have an understanding of what's occurring and when, understand what the process is going forward, and having Jen here in case there are any questions that you folks might have. Unless you want to add anything to that.
I don't know how much the commission knows about the project, so I can.
They have been shared the full document. Well, that was probably before Paul came on board, so they kind of know what's going on, but.
Yeah, so just real quick, I'll just give a 2-minute update on what the project is. It's reconstructing 7th Avenue from Northern Drive to just north of Fall Street. We're replacing all sewer, all water main, and adding some storm sewer. The road will be reconstructed with is a urban which is curb and gutter on the east side, and rural on the west side. So there is some storm sewer that's added to the project. All water services will be replaced up to the curb box. New curb boxes for each property too. So there's going to be a lot of coordination with all of the property owners and renters there. Temp water is going to be in effect while they're going. We're assuming it's going to be a block by block construction, just because we need to minimize how much they open and day long or all night long, so it's gonna be a lot of work, but yeah, it's a full replacement of water main and upside heated to new damage main in the corridor.
I'm assuming that's gonna get rid of those big puddles there too then?
We're addressing some of the drainage and
Yeah,
areas.
Because that's been a problem. for-
Yeah.
Yeah.
9 in particular is what is,
Yeah, right. Thanks for the update on that.
So there was an open house, which city staff were there, Scott was also there to make sure that the local neighborhood knew what was going on. And then I also do want to send out a thanks to WSB in terms of addressing our electrical needs, because we were able to do some potholing, get them some more data, which eliminated the need for us to do some expensive relocates, which is
very expensive to
appreciated.
relocate.
So thank you for that. They've been really good to work with and trying to make sure that this project works for everybody.
Good job.
Well, this doesn't directly affect this commission, but did you have a chance to talk with that gentleman at the open house that night that had the drainage issues with the yard?
I went to his home after the open house. We can do some things now.
Cool. All right, we don't need any action on that, just an update.
Yeah, no action at this time. I would expect, the next time we get together, we might need some action on the bid selection.
And just one last thing that I want to bring up, because I don't like to be the Debbie Downer, but I do like to make sure that we're all prepared for what may happen. We're still waiting on state aid comments to come in. This is the street portion, because we are adding, I should have mentioned also, that we're adding a compact roundabout up at the school at 12. So the street improvements are state aid funded through the county using county state aid dollars. So it has to go through state aid review, and with all the federal projects that the state aid is reviewing right now, there's a very huge backlog, and so it's taking a lot of time. So right now we do have that bid date set for May 9th. We do have a little bit of flexibility in there to move that bid date another week and still be able to hit the commission and the city council and the county packet deadlines for awarding at their May meeting. So we're just crossing our fingers that all goes well. We're also crossing our fingers that we get good bid prices. Currently, it is a very good bidding environment, even bidding now in late April. We're getting really good prices. So contractors are not full, they are looking for work. So they're actually calling me, asking me, are we still on schedule to bid this, because they do want to bid the project. So that's reassuring also, but we are counting on still meeting the budget that we have for the project. So, I do like to just throw that just in case that, we are looking at the pricing that comes in and considering whether we will be awarding in May.
Yeah, we had an early construction season start up this year.
Yeah,
So that should have some capacity to
Yes.
contractors, yeah.
I agree.
The one comment I heard after that meeting, and other street comments, is it'd be nice to have a roundabout at
Rum River.
Drive.
I know,
Too bad that's not part of the
I
project.
know. We had to fight just for 12.
We should have some safety there. Yeah. Okay. Move on to PFAS report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have Steve Nelson from WSB joining us today as well. Steve, if you want to come and join us. The commission is aware of the developments from the federal EPA on April 10th. I did include in your packets a copy of the statement that we had put on our website regarding PFAS and what that new decision means for us. And since then, Steve and I have been talking quite a bit about starting to put together kind of a template for what we should start planning for, and starting to start thinking about the different kind of questions we need to answer, and coming up with a strategy for us to address the new EPA standards, which will really go into force 5 years from now. So we've got 5 years, but on the other hand, we only have 5 years to kind of figure out some pretty complicated, answer some pretty complicated questions. So Steve put together an initial plan idea, which is in front of you in memorandum 24-09. I really appreciate Steve working with me and kind of thinking this through. As you can see, part of the big question we need to try to address for ourselves is the size of the plume for PFAS in the aquifer that's affecting wells 8 and 9. So there is some hydrogeological work that would have to be done. The good thing is there is some grants out there that we can get through the PCA to pay for these studies upfront. But we do need to move on those pretty quickly. Once we figure out the extent of the plume, we can then start to put together some alternatives and some cost estimates for a couple of different strategies. And then once we have that done, then we can bring that to the commission and get your direction as to which way you want to go. Generally speaking, and you see this in the plan, the three options the three main options are simply, could we get by with digging a deeper well, which is probably not going to work for us, but we want to investigate that and verify that. Otherwise, we are looking at filtration at the existing site or actually closing that site and building a new one. But a lot of that depends upon the findings that we have here. Steve is the Director of Water and Wastewater at WSB. He works with Hastings, who is dealing with the same issues. So he comes to this with a lot of experience, and so I've really been relying on him to help educate me on this project. So Steve's here to help kind of explain some of this, answer any questions you might have. Steve, if there's anything you want to add to what I've said, please feel free.
Sure, thank you, Keith. Yeah, just for some background, was one of the lead contributor for the settlement that 3M had for the Minnesota Attorney General when the state of Minnesota basically sued 3M for the PFAS contamination in East Metro. So that type of study was like 13 communities. It's very similar. You know, they want to see a checklist. So you look at alternative sources, deeper wells farther away with, you know, pipelines coming in and all the restoration costs, you know, treat at your existing plant. Removing it, basically PFAS does not, it's used for like fire foam and stuff, so it does not destroy or digest or remove easily. That's why, you know, it's everywhere, it's firefighting foams. So they don't want you just to concentrate it and send it to the sewer. That's called kicking the can down the road. They want you to kind of capture it. So the treatment is you capture it on kind of like charcoal that you might see in like a fish tank filter. And then after a year or 2 years, once that you see that, you know, it's absorbing through the different granules all the way down, it breaks through one vessel, and you have a second leg vessel, and you replace that. So that is quite expensive because of the ongoing costs. So that's why I think it's very good to get ahead of this and study, you know, what the options are. So through June 1st, as Keith mentioned, there's this MPCA grant that allows for some of these assessments so that you can work towards getting shovel ready, so that if there is, you know, through the legislature, through other sources, this probably will be things that they'll be funding for, but you want to be shovel ready. So I think it's very good to jump in there, get the study, so they say, well, when you look at that, say, well, we just didn't think that you know, you gotta say, yeah, when your engineer looked at it, technically, you know, a deeper well is not feasible. Because they want to make sure if they're handing out money for the construction of these solutions and maybe even, you know, maintenance costs, that they have had it all studied. So I think he's ahead of this one too, just like the lead service line of lead and copper rule is ahead of involved for years, and yeah, you guys are ahead of that one too. So I think it's June 1st, you know, so that's the deadline. So we just probably want to turn this request around pretty quickly for these like 3 studies. The study of could you go deeper? As Keith mentioned, most likely not, based on your geology here, but we want a hydrogeologist expert to say that, not me, probably not. So we have someone we work with for that, and then, you know, how far can you go? You might want to involve the city too, because if we're going with a raw water line, you know, annexation is probably not a popular word, you know, because you're right on the edge there. It's like going through town too, you know, you have to factor in those costs and make the city, probably keep the city abreast of what those, you know, concerns are. And probably lastly would be treatment. Either, you know, move the whole treatment plant and just treat it as you are, but if we can't guarantee you're going to be out of that PFAS plume, then it's add right onto the end of your plant just some more kind of pop can vessels that you're gonna push the water through with the same wells and pressure just before it goes up to the tower level. So, it's kind of familiar for me to be in principles. I designed water plant 1, well 7, and well 8 and 9, and water plant 2. Different firms, but, so it's kind of fun to be back and involved again, hopefully helping. So, probably questions or I maybe missed something, but
Yeah, I've got some questions.
yeah.
So how hard, is it possible that this, could be, a local source that this is coming from?
Yeah, that's what we, I don't know how the hydrogeologist is gonna be able to assess that, but, typically it's, in the metro, it's clearly just landfills, but it really, it travels so well because it's kind of slippery too, pizza boxes, so the things that make it travel well are the very things that make it so useful, Scotch guard, pizza box coatings, firefighting foam, so it really can travel a lot more than Hastings. That's the big thing there. They excluded them from that settlement I referred to, but then they found out, they later had the expert hydrogeologist come back and say, no, it's definitely, because they can trace it back to the exact type of molecule that only 3M made, so they basically know that that's it. But that's kind of the challenge, even if we know it's a point source, it's like we have to assess, okay, which way is the water flowing, and then make sure our wells aren't in that path, so we're not gonna draw it anywhere. So that's kind of some of that, which I'm not the expert on. But that's the thinking, so ideally if you were like, no, it was okay, fire training facility, at the airport, they're using those foams, that could be very limited and it's gonna go up for a while and come back down. But
Is there a way to maybe test some of the wells in that area, private wells, to see if it's in that? I mean, to see if we can find an area that it's,
probably, if those are good ideas, I'd have to see what the, hydrogeologist, he's going to.
rather than drilling wells, maybe test some that are there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, if it's the same source, that's definitely a good idea. The tests themselves are pretty expensive, I think that's the thing too, we should think.
How deep is our well there?
I believe 140-ish range.
Yeah, it's pretty shallow.
Not super deep or anything, so.
We're not a whole lot deeper than most of the private wells in the.
Yeah, I
in the
think they're like 90 feet, right, so.
Yeah, I remember when we were drilling those wells, we were testing, neighbors to see what influence, if it would be, make them have to change the pumps or whatever, so we gotta be connected.
So that PFAS plume is most likely from the local source, not coming all the way from the city.
No, probably not, because that tends to go towards the river,
Yeah.
right there, that's off.
Is there a way they can tell which way the flow is through some of that testing then, to see which way it's moving, or?
Yeah.
I mean, if they can find the source, you think they'd be able to find the.
Yeah, I can't speak to that, but I know that they'll have an idea with their maps, and they'll probably, like, I think the department, I think it's the Department of Health or Department of Natural Resources, has an existing groundwater model, which we'll request, and so our proposal is already, he's drafted out, is assuming that we'll get access to that. And let's calibrate and check, and then make some of those decisions about what can we do to assess, is there a place where there'd be a well that we're not gonna start pumping, and then 2 years later have PFAS, that would be the worst thing that could happen. So,
Maybe you might not know the answer to this question, but if you were to test on private wells in the area just to see if it's showing up there, would that be, once they know that there's PFAS in there, is that something that they're gonna be, have some fiduciary responsibility to report that they're under?
that's a good question. I haven't heard that that's the case, because I know there's a lot of private wells around areas in the East Metro too, and it's kind of like then, like when we looked at the solutions and cost effective, putting in, treatment at homes was ended up being way more expensive, just because it is so expensive to test for PFAS, and then for liability reasons, you'd want to be testing that regularly. Where if we have one huge plant and you have a whole extra filter, we can catch that with our operators. So that's what kind of made centralized treatment more cost effective, even if you had communities. But there's under, at least they would know. I mean, I think that would be, something that they'd
I just
probably
wanna
like to
jump
know.
in with the private, I think the regulations right now are on the municipal wells, but I think it's safe to say that if it's in your municipal well, that anyone else drawing in a well in that same depth, a private one is experiencing the same, it's obviously the same water, so they're likely having PFAS, but it's
Yeah.
just not tested,
Yeah,
so.
so do you think the 80-90 foot wells are pulling the same PFAS as the 140, or do you think that doesn't seem like a lot of separation, but it could be a different aquifer, right? Or,
Yeah, I couldn't answer that. I know that the hydrogeologist might have some ideas, but it seemed like when we went through, I mean, they had the experts of the experts of the experts in that $900 million settlement. And they just said it ended up having more questions. There's there's really, PFAS covers a huge number of chemicals. PFBA is very small chain and it's very mobile, and you might, but the limit for that is 7,000 parts per trillion.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
what are so I think it's important to, I mean, I always wanna take these very careful because it's very sensitive when we talk about drinking water and what's in the water, right? But I mean, I think it's important to note that it's currently not, I mean, I don't want this to come out like it's not an important factor, but they were talking about 1 teaspoon in 11 Olympic size, is it 11 or 20 Olympic size pools that I heard? That's the concentration that they're at, and they're moving tighter with that limit, right? So I mean, I just want to
put it in perspective.
put it into perspective that it's not, I don't think,
We're not drinking PFAS or.
you're not, yeah, they have very strict, I mean, it's just, and I don't know why, maybe Steve, and it's probably not for us to answer at this point in time until we kind of get more direction from the Department of Health, but, because they can't even answer a lot of these questions. They're just setting these limits that come from, I don't know where, but I feel like we all should feel safe, even if you have an 80-foot well or drinking from our municipal wells. It's a very, very, that was brought up at a conference I was at when they were talking about the concentration. It's 1 teaspoon in, I feel like I keep saying 11, but someone said 20. I was like, geez, that's even, 20 equals 6. And I don't mean it's not important, but I just want to.
I would be careful about even though saying any of those analogies. The EPA has set this limit. They more so the Department of Health factor in the cost that it takes to adjust everything. And so it's only PFOA, PFS. These are the limits and you're going to be required to meet them.
Does anybody know a motivation behind lowering those limits from what they used to do?
Well, those had been the draft ones for a while. It's just been studied a lot. Department of Health continues to study it and not, kind of not tying cost and making.
Is there a
One fix there, but sometimes it's the lower you
motivation?
the lower you can measure is kind of the issue.
Yeah.
But
I was just wondering if there was a financial or a health motivation, or if there was people were getting sick somewhere that they thought they needed to lower it.
Well, yeah, a couple of thoughts. One is, until April 10th, the federal EPA didn't have a limit. So this is what they set up. What we were abiding by was the state Department of Health limit, which was a health index, which looked at multiple PFAS compounds and kind of did a ratio across all those. What EPA did is they came in and said, we're just going to focus on these 2, and they set it to 4 parts per trillion. So we still are under the MDH rules, but with the new EPAs, that's where we're now at an elevated level for that. So, and then in terms of how do they come up with it, typically they do these epidemiological studies and all sorts of other things to determine how cancerous things are and that kind of methodology, and that's way beyond me and how they determine health risks at that point. To the points that have been made, these could still change over time, but right now we have to work off the 4 parts per trillion, which EPA has codified.
I've gotten just a few people have questioned me about it. There's obviously some misinformation already,
Yeah.
So that doesn't.
Well, there are always those that are going to take that run to try to make something to do.
One of the,
Yeah.
The other thing I would point out too is,
one of the Baldwin board members is.
the other thing I would point out too is, we found it because we participated in a voluntary survey with the Department of Health to start looking for it. We don't know how, I mean, it could have been there from day one. I mean, these chemicals have been made since the 1940s. It's just, like we're talking about private wells, for folks that might say, well, my private well is fine. Well,
Yeah.
if you haven't tested for it, you don't know that. It's just, we have been, working very closely with the Department of Health to ensure we understand what's going on here locally.
Yeah.
And because we looked for it, that's where we had to test it.
If you think of public meeting, one of the things we did right, you know, we knew, thanks to Keith in part, you know, because the Department of Health was calling, kind of showing their hand before they really wanted to with Keith, because we had that in Hastings, our public, serves as public works director for Hastings, was having meetings with what they call the co-trustees, the MPC and Department of Health, all the time in legislation. They were just saying, oh, we don't know anything new. I mean, which they did. They knew this was coming. They just didn't want to let it out for some reason. But now, you know, we had, he called Department of Health like the night before and said, we know this announcement's going to come out, and because Hastings is right in the thick of it, and all the news stations going to be out there, everybody was out there the next morning. Says, I want you guys out there the next morning. They didn't call them or show up. But we did get them to promise within 30 days you're going to be present for an open house. So if you want Department of Health, the experts, that probably be the most vital thing, because then you're not saying something and then misleading people. You're saying, yeah, here's the experts. Pass it
Which,
down.
yeah, and the Department of Health has agreed to do that. I've been trying to figure out their schedule so we can get them up here, but we are,
Yeah.
our intention is to do that, and like I said, let them field these questions, because they know it better than
That, for sure, that, and the same job again, point to, in our PR, or whatever, PR, I think the fact that the drinking water is safe has to be the primary public relationship part of this whole thing. For sure, you know, our users, your drinking water is safe. Because that's what people pick up on, one drop, you gotta drink 5 swimming pools full in 2 days or something, you know, put it in perspective.
Yeah, I wonder if, you know, in the real estate world, when you're selling private homes, that some people require water tests. I wonder.
Well, there is a minimum water. There is a
But
water
they're not
test.
testing for that.
No, they're not.
So I wonder if that'll be added to that requirement.
And I believe right now there's currently only 6 certified labs in the United States, I think, is the list that the Department of Health sent me over of. It's a very few number of labs that are even capable of testing for this. There's a pretty short list of places.
Do you have residents with private wells or people that would attend? You
I
can
think
have
so.
that list of questions for Department of Health for them to be ready for, because they could say, here's the link where you could go to get, you know, point of, basically home treatment units. I mean, it costs some to operate those, but if you put it through the equivalent of what you have at your plant, it's going to be.
Yeah. Since treatment plant 2, which is what we're talking about, isn't at the center of the community, it's on the very south end, right at the edge of city limits. There are a bunch of private wells right next door to it. So when we did the press release, we did say that we're going to do this for our customers, and anybody with a private well is more than welcome to attend as well to get their questions answered.
We could add that to the Department of Health agenda for them to be ready for with links so that people can walk away with a piece of paper or something, or a QR code or something.
Yeah, and there was a question on social media to which I did provide the MDH link to private well testing as well. So we have gotten that question
And then,
that way as well.
this was, one of the questions that I had asked of me was, did the city or any of us know about this before this whole Altman incorporation? And which
Well, no, I mean, as Steve mentioned, I mean, the EPA had been talking about doing something for a long time, but you never know where those standards are gonna come and go, or how it's gonna get adjusted. And even right up until, right before the announcement, the indications we got from MDH was, well, maybe something might come out in the fall or next year. And then all of a sudden on Monday, the Monday prior to April 10th, we get a phone call saying, hey, by the way, this is coming out in 2 days.
And that was a slip, because they were intentionally keeping it from other communities. They just had a younger fresh out of school, Department of Health person, talking to Keith, they go, oh, man, what was I supposed to share?
You didn't get the minutes.
Like, I did not confirm or deny. Next time there's a missing cupcake, I'm gonna use that.
It was not in the high-level meeting then.
Yeah.
So yes, so MDH was very tight-lipped about the whole thing, and.
So we can definitely say this is not a plan by number one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you
Put
could
that
say
out there
that.
for any Baldwin Township members, watching.
Yeah, one of the few responses I did on social media, I actually thanked the person to say, I appreciate they think we have that much power to influence state and federal policy to do whatever we want, whenever we want. Unfortunately, we're just at the whims of our regulators, just like everybody else. We just strive to meet the standards. And to Jack's point, we are meeting all the health requirements right now. It's just with this, EPA has announced that in 5 years, they're gonna be changing the standards, and we wanna make sure we comply with those standards when they happen.
I think the key where you can keep there saying we will continue, we've been working with the Department of Health, we've been voluntarily allow sampling, we will continue to monitor. Just because the EPA suddenly came down with their official standard, which now the Department of Health has to, as a promulgating agency, they have to adopt. We're gonna continue to work with the Department of Health, so having them here would be, Princeton and PUC has been great to work with, it's been great to work with, and we'll continue to work with and support you guys over the next 2 years of study and then 3 years of implementation.
Well, then going back to like your original dam, where is it coming from? Well, Pete has it in their water, because they set it up there, and two of our 3 wells, have a big black showed up on that, or in between them.
It was at peace.
Yeah, they're
Well,
one of
they're all
the 23 cities.
That's right.
So it's
tough for them,
so
it's
hard.
Really small community there.
Correct.
And Pete as well is fairly new, I think.
Yeah, they just put that in maybe 15 years
Peace,
ago.
the city Peace, you said?
Peace.
They're pretty high.
20 years ago maybe, I know
Yeah, that's been very long.
it's not very long.
They just let the water go on the last couple of years.
Yeah, you have, Paul, have you had any questions?
I have not.
I think some of the message that we got out there was pretty clear, if you weren't looking for some ulterior motive, I think that was pretty clear.
I think in general, we've been pretty good here.
Yeah.
Recent years.
Yeah,
We're getting out front of stuff,
yeah,
in general.
yeah, if you already wanted to believe something else, I think you're easily convinced to look somewhere else.
Well, and I really want to thank Scott and Chrissy too, because they played a key role in helping us with our communication to make sure that it was easily understood and getting everything out and addressing places that were coming up. So it really has been a team effort.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that information.
One other thing I just want to make sure I share with the commission, if Dan and Jack, you might recall that we did sign on to the class action lawsuit against 3M and all the AFF stuff. We are still a part of that, so we are expected to receive something. I don't know at this point, it's still unknown. But 3M, DuPont, and now Tyco have settled as to when those funds become available. If we, whatever we get from that, we will definitely set aside for whatever mitigation strategy we'll come up with to help mitigate any rate impacts to our customers.
I did see, as soon as I found out about this, I started doing some research. That was one of the first things I ran into, is that there will be some monies available for help even before.
They basically set that limit on what will not bankrupt those companies, so it won't be enough to make people whole, but at least it's a start.
Yeah.
So,
Good to know. Anything else on that?
Well, I would like to have a motion authorizing staff to continue to work with WSB on submitting funding requests to begin these studies, if I could.
Yeah, we certainly have to do that. They're all questions right now, so I'll make that one.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, so then Steve and I will continue to work together, and we'll try to put a funding request here together in early May, and get that out and, get it in front of the powers that be and see what we can come up with.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
6D, generation feasibility study, part 2.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So, we have been working with DGR on, looking at adding additional generation here in town, given, the SIPA's interest in adding in some more quick start contracts to their load. So we did provide at the February 28th meeting that their preliminary analysis, which showed that if we did add generation, we could do that without adversely affecting our existing air permit, which, as you folks know, is my big concern. Last thing we want to do is jeopardize that air permit and our existing generation. Since that came back promising, Commission had instructed staff to continue working with DGR to do some additional work on the feasibility of that. DGR has responded back with an amendment to their task order number 8 to do the second part of a generation feasibility study with an estimated cost of about $26,500. I did want to point out that their part 1 did come in, it's time and materials basis, but it did come in under budget. So, they have been very good with trying to keep to our budget requirements as well. It is again, it is a study just under $30,000, so it's not in the budget for this year, so we probably have to just take that out of cash reserves. But before we, invest several $million in adding generation, I think it would be prudent to really look at some locations. The amendment to the task order is in your packets, and you can see the different things that they would look at. Primarily, our main points of planning is to look at adding the generation at one of our existing substations so we get the interconnects, as well as if there's still containment issues or anything like that, help minimize those costs. And then that final report would be presented to the commission by DGR so that you folks can then decide, is it a go, no go kind of thing. I will also mention that SIPA is having a quick start work group in New Prague on Tuesday, which I will be attending. Staff have been reviewing SIPA's proposed contract. We do have a couple of suggestions and a few questions that we want to ask just to make sure that should we go down that path, the contract does work for us. So working a couple of different angles on it just to make sure that if the commission does decide to move forward, we have everything in place to implement that. So if that is acceptable to the commission, I'd be asking for approval of the amendment to task order number 8 in the amounts cited. And like I said, that's going to have to come out of our reserves because it's not in the budget for this year.
And what was the timeline on that?
Oh, that's a good question. We really hadn't talked about how long that was going to take because it's one of those things where we can't do anything anyway until SIPA finalizes their new quick start agreement, which we have to do with all the members anyway. So I don't even know. But I guess my anticipation would be after that, after this study, we would have some really good numbers and timelines for what it would take to actually install it, how long it would take to construct, and everything else. I still think we're looking at a few years because we'd also have to apply for a new air permit for the new generation. Again, our existing one we would be able to leave intact, but we still have to apply for a new air permit. And stuff like that typically takes a few years anyway. So sometime this summer.
We have another possible thing going too, which this would be part of it probably. But I'm not opposed by anything, but we have to have this information one way or another.
Well, if you're referring to the CAP plan, yeah, it kind of helps with the interconnects on that as well.
Industrial park too.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, really for us though, it's a matter of location. Do we add it here, where our existing power plant is at? Do we do it at the south sub or the north sub? What kind of unit do we need? There's all sorts of different variables, that we would just need to cost out the different options and bring them to the commission and see what they think.
I know we had a discussion a while, I can't remember how long ago, but sometime since I've been here about, possibly not meeting the emission standards with our generation that we have now. They
Yeah,
changed.
and that we have been fine on, that they have not implemented the new source, rules on existing
Or would
generation.
we be immune to that, but for any reason, if we were to change it?
Well, we have been grandfathered in to date.
Okay.
That being said,
Yeah.
you know, the government can always change the rules.
Sure.
But I will say that, we are currently doing an update on our existing air permit. We haven't heard back from PCA yet on that. That's not unusual. That takes time. I have heard that, some of our peers, St. Peter as an example, they got their air permit renewed, no problem whatsoever. So at
So
this
is-
point, I'm not hearing anything that would jeopardize our existing air permit, that we will be able to continue as is, for the foreseeable future.
I noticed in the report that they might be looking at possibly some used generation plants, is there other cities that are having to
We always look,
take down their?
yeah, I guess I don't remember that specifically, but it's very typical to at least keep your options open.
Mhm.
And then the big thing is gonna be determining which, there's different levels. So all the new generation needs like Scott, can you help me, is it like a Title V?
Tier 4,
Tier 4, thank you.
so same as the vehicle type emission standards.
Yeah, it is possible sometimes if you find a used one out there that was built under the Tier 3, you can continue to operate it as a Tier 3. And so that just depends on what they find in that regard.
I was just, my train of thought was like, are there gonna be some communities are gonna do away with generating, there'll be some opportunities for.
Yeah, in terms of units we're looking at, we're not seeing that because the issue continues to be that these are units that don't run very often.
Yeah,
They're there more for the hottest days and the
right,
coldest
cause
days.
it's just back up for the booster or whatever they call it.
Correct, which is why we think, simplest perspective on this is regardless of the 100% carbon-free rule by 2040, there's some accounting that's gonna be done, because as a utility, we think in terms of every minute of the year of meeting our power needs. And then the rest of it is just trading.
You're right.
And so these units do play a critical role in the reliability side of it, even if they're not the workhorses that are generating most of the energy throughout the year. They just keep the system in balance during those difficult times.
Do you think, Scott, there'll be, or Jeremy, is there gonna be room over here, for anything like that? That's part of the
They
study.
can actually go, the units actually almost fit into like a 30-foot sea container. They have actually skid mounted units, or
It's pretty small.
cat in a box is what they call them.
Oh,
The radiators are mounted, some of them are mounted right in one end of the deal.
so that's
There's
smaller than
some
what
of
we
fully contained units, so.
have. Much smaller than what we.
Yeah, they're smaller than our, smaller output than our existing cat, but they overall have a smaller footprint and just higher speed.
I guess I was imagining.
Yeah, and the operations actually are very, a lot simpler too. They're just push button starts in some cases. So, it's a different technology than what we have now.
Cool. All right, any other questions? Anybody?
We're already our way into it, I suppose. We're back out now, I don't think.
I'll entertain a motion to approve a feasibility study funding for generation.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
All right.
Motion carries 3-0. And that covers that amendment to task order number 8.
Yes, sir. At least that's how I have it written down.
Okay.
That was an approval for eliminate.
All right, thank you. 2024 Joint Commission City Council meeting proposal Tuesday, June 4th at 4:30 in the council chambers.
Yes, Mr. Chair, as you know, we meet annually with the city council. I did talk it over with Michelle, and we found that Tuesday, June 4th, during their work session, and it's moved to the 4th because of Rum River Festival. That work session would be a good time for the council and the commission to meet. Michelle and I can work together on agenda. There are particular topics that folks have in mind, they can let me know, but if that is acceptable, we can leave it on the calendar.
Michelle, did you verify that with the mayor?
Yeah, it's on tomorrow night's council agenda. It should be fine. I mean, our date
It
is,
interferes with his golf schedule.
no, it's done by 4:30. He golfs in the morning league. He should be fine.
No.
Yeah.
That's what I want, I golf with him.
You guys have to make sure you get done in 3 hours. If you golf at 1.
Sounds like it's
I was gonna say, so.
like my level, but
I was gonna say, if all else fails, we can, start at, 4:45.
I might actually work. I didn't want to blame it on me.
And I'll be out of town prior to that, but I should be back in town before. Should be.
So we were looking at a 4:30, well, when you have a study session before that?
No,
Oh, I thought.
no,
I'm just sure that's-
no, it's, Rum River's a week. That first week in June, a lot of times because of when the dates fall, usually falls during our regular. But regardless, we move it to Tuesday that week because the parade is on Thursday. And there's no parking and people are in the parade and stuff, so, so that day we always move, or that month, we move the first meeting to Tuesday, so that's why it works out good for everybody, I think.
So it works for everybody but Tom and
Like I said, we can start at 4:45.
I can be the cog in the wheel, so if Tom's okay with it,
I'll let you know tomorrow, it's on the agenda, but
Good,
that's
yeah.
the plan.
I'll entertain a motion on that. We change it to 4:45, or I'll make the motion if we could approve it for 4:45.
Awesome, love that.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signal by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 3-0. And that's,
Make a motion to adjourn.
all right, we have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.